Not too long ago, I did a voting poll on my Twitter page asking my viewers on the next series of reviews I should do, and the winner was the Mega Man X games. My first experience with the Mega Man franchise was around the late 90s with X4 on my family PC, and I remember watching a few episodes of NT Warrior on Fox Kids around the 2000s. But I wasn't a Blue Bomber fanatic until the Story Attack days talking about their love for the series. Me and my brothers downloaded Mega Man 2, 3 and the new at the time Mega Man 9 on the Nintendo Wii, and it was then I properly got into the series. I really enjoyed the classic Mega Man games, but my experience with the X sub-series is only the first 4 games, so I'm looking forward and terrified at getting at the rest of the series. Up first is the original Mega Man X, which is considered by many not only one of the best Mega Man games, but one of the best Super Nintendo games, as well as one of the best 2D platformers of all time. I would be playing the X series through the Legacy Collection, which at the time are probably the most accessible, but the first game is available through the original Super Nintendo, the Mini, and the Wii U and new 3DS eShops. There is also the PSP remake Maverick Hunter X, which adds a few new bells and whistles, but for this review I will mostly be focusing on the original game. While we got to see many series like Mario and Ghosts and Goblins advance to the 16-bit generation, it took the Blue Bomber a little longer to make that jump, as he was still tin on the NES. The development team at Capcom wanted to make the transition more extreme, with a darker and radical story, which at the time was the popular thing to do in entertainment. That was the 90s for you, and in some cases, it still lives on. Series veteran Kenji Inafune even drastically changed the Blue Bomber's design that eventually became Zero. Instead, the redesign came down to another Mega Man veteran, as well as the Battle.net character designer Hayato Kaji, which from an evolution of the character, Hayato did a better job at designing. Compared to its predecessor, the X series puts more emphasis on story. During Dr. Thomas Wright's final days, he created Mega Man X, who had the potential to become the ultimate robot with human-level intelligence and the ability of free will. Wait, so I'm guessing the OG had no free will then? Dr. Wright then put X into hibernation for the next 30 years for diagnostics, to be sure that X would be used for peace. Many years later, after Wright's death, X is discovered by archaeologist Dr. Kane, who then studied Wright's research and X himself to mass-produce robots named Reploids. Unfortunately, if you read or watch a majority of stories that center around robots, a lot of them go violent, resulting in them becoming Mavericks. To counter the violent robots and bring order, Kane forms the Maverick Hunters. One of Kane's creations and former leader of the Hunters, Sigma, one day decides to go rogue and recruits 8 Mavericks into his army to wipe out the human race, and it's up to X and Zero to stop him. Most of the story details are in the game's manual and the OVA film Day of Sigma, which is in the PSP remake and the X Legacy Collection. Bear in mind though, some of the story details like Dr. Kane's death is only in the Day of Sigma story and Maverick Hunter X, which is most likely in its own continuity, as Kane does appear in the next game. Besides that though, X's origin and the story summary is the same. While the story is more involved, the actual game only features a few cutscenes, which you don't have to pay much attention to, especially if you played this game a good number of times. While the series got a new coat of paint, the goal is pretty much the same: defeat the 8 Mavericks in any order and give Sigma a good arse kicking. X is able to gain weapons from the bosses too, which the majority of them are good, and thanks to the Super Nintendo with its good number of buttons, you can switch between weapons on the fly, instead of pressing pause every time you want to switch. The shotgun ice scatters into many pieces when it hits a wall, which is good at hitting airborne enemies. The Storm Tornado is a powerful weapon that can kill many bosses like this into dust within seconds. Some of them have uses outside of combat too, like the Boomerang Cutter, which is used to grab heart pieces and energy tanks, and the chameleon sting when fully charged with an upgrade can make X completely invulnerable for a tiny bit, which is a lifesaver in the first Sigma stage. The Mavericks are also weak to certain weapons, though the bosses are perfectly fine to fight against with the Buster alone. When you beat a certain Maverick, not only will you get that Maverick's power, but some of the stages will change too. For example, Flame Maverick stage is usually covered in lava, but if you beat Teal Penguin stage prior, then the lava will be frozen solid, allowing you to move across the frozen lava and pick up the heart piece. There are some other stages that change too depending on the Maverick you defeat, making each playthrough feel different. I love it, and I hope future titles will keep this design. X is able to get armor upgrades for each body part by going in the Dr. Light capsules. There are the helmet, which can break certain blocks as well as protect him from foreign objects. The torso, which halves damage by half. The arm cannon, which makes X's charge shot stronger as well as giving your special weapons new moves. And finally, the game changer, the boost shoes. There is also another ability, the Hadouken, from Capcom's other popular series, Street Fighter, which can one-shot the majority of bosses as long as you're perfectly healthy. This was an Easter egg back in the day of its release, so the requirement was meant to be hidden, but the way to get it is still absurd, as you're supposed to get every power-up, go to the end of Armored Armadillo stage, and commit Seppuku numerous times till you get it. The boots, along with the ability to walk it, is what makes Mega Man X so much fun, as it provides high-speed action and platforming that go in hand with the other designs. Since the screen no longer transitions from one screen to another, besides the boss doors, the movement feels nice and fast-paced, with a lack of interruptions. While I love the ability to dash, I would say unlike the armor upgrades that you can ignore and still beat the game, the boots are mandatory, and I suggest going to Teal Penguin stage first to get them. Otherwise, fighting the rest of the Mavericks will be hard, and the majority of the collectibles require you to at least have them on. If you're going for a weakness order, then Teal Penguin is the recommended choice, and isn't an issue, but I would assume that first timers who are unaware of the boss order would pick somebody like Storm Eagle first, and may struggle. Apparently, this was to get veteran Mega Man players to adjust to the new game gradually, but I think the best way to do this is to obtain the boots at the end, or somewhere in the middle of the tutorial stage. Unlike X's older brother, he starts off with a very small amount of health, and instead needs to get heart pieces, like the Zelda and Metroid games, to increase it. This may seem stupid to nerf the hero, while it was perfectly fine in the previous titles just to have some collectibles, but as someone who plays stuff like Metroid and RPGs, I'm fine with this decision. Around the time of X's release, RPGs were a popular genre in Japan, so the team were inspired by the genre and wanted to add visual elements of showing the player's experience throughout the adventure, and this was by adding armor upgrades, heart pieces, and sub-tanks. Instead of the one and done energy tanks, there are now 4 sub-tanks that can be reused numerous times by picking up health from dead corpses. Think of it like energy tanks as a can of Coke, and sub-tanks as canisters that can be refilled as many times as you like. I prefer the way Mega Man X handles gaining your health back. As someone who enjoys RPGs, I like the idea of starting out weak but gradually getting stronger, becoming a force to be reckoned with. And while Mega Man X is a platformer at heart, the way it tells its story through gameplay, it gives off a similar vibe to an RPG. You don't start off with much besides the standard shots, and you will get your ass kicked by Vile in a forced boss fight, but by the end game, you mop the floor on the dude and surpass your superior Zero. Mega Man X isn't anything deep, but it's at least engaging. The Mega Man series is well known for its music, especially amongst retro fans. Heck, Mega Man's name in Japanese is Rockman, who is named after the rock genre. They even knew that the music is fantastic. Mega Man X's soundtrack is just as good too, giving off the rock and roll vibe, intimidating electric guitar riffs, and it's thanks to these talented musicians. There are plenty of amazing tunes, such as Chill Penguin stage, Spark Mandrill stage, and the opening Yellow stage, but my absolute favourite is Storm Eater stage, which got stuck in my head a few times. While it took the Blue Bomber a little while to jump to the Super Nintendo, as well as going for a slightly darker tone, it was a successful one, and I can see why, as Mega Man X is an excellent 2D platformer that remained true to the series formula that improved on some of the limitations of its predecessors. I can see why so many people claim to be one of the best Super Nintendo games, as well as some of their favourites. I will definitely put it up there as one of the best games on that system too. With about a year after its release, Capcom released the sequel, Mega Man X2, which is going to be my next review, so I hope you stick around for it. Take care and have a wonderful day.